Hello, greetings, and welcome back to just another update overview video for Morrowind Rebirth. I really didn't think we'd actually be doing another one of these quite so soon, but with the surprise release of Morrowind Rebirth 5.7, we've got just another rather extensive list of changes, big and small, to cover in today's video. This is, perhaps, unofficially the Dwemer update, as the biggest change in 5.7 is with Morrowind's Dwemer ruins. But there's also the typical city overhauls, graphical additions, new items, and just other little changes here and there that we'll be taking a look at in today's video. Like last time, we'll be dividing this video up into sections, taking a look at the major changes in 5.7 for city overhauls, landscapes, dungeons, graphical additions, new items, and gameplay improvements. And like last time, we'll be showing a comparison footage, where we can, of Morrowind Rebirth 5.6. So you can just see how these areas looked before and after with the new update applied. We'll typically show the before footage first, followed with the new footage from 5.7. And as always, downlinks and a link to the official changelog for 5.7 can just, be found right down below. With that out of the way, we'll begin, as always, with the major updates made in 5.7 to towns and cities, starting with Suran. The big update here with 5.7 has to do with the docks and the area directly in front of the docks. You can see the footage from Morrowind Rebirth 5.6 here, and as you can probably tell, Rebirth already, added docks to Suran, something that was originally missing in the vanilla game. Despite being a waterfront settlement, vanilla Suran had just really no proper docks or ships of any kind. Now, here you can see what these docks look like in 5.7. You'll notice that they've been expanded with additional space for more ships to potentially dock at Suran, and indeed, there's also notably some more smaller craft like rowboats and skiffs that you'll find at dock here. In addition, the new dock expansions use that same sort of curved effect first seen in Dagoth with Rebirth 5.6 that just really makes for a neat visual element here. You'll also find a few new outdoor merchants just around the docks, out here as well. The next big update in terms of towns and cities actually has to do with the Vivec foreign quarter, and more specifically, the interiors for the upper and lower wasteworks of the foreign quarter. You can see the before footage here from Rebirth 5.6, and for the most part, prior to the 5.7 update, Morrowind Rebirth hasn't really touched upon the interiors of the foreign quarter too much, at least ways not the wasteworks, as very little is different here from the vanilla game. But obviously that's no longer the case with 5.7, as both the lower and upper wasteworks have been just expanded somewhat to take advantage of previously unused space. The cantons, after all, are rather large buildings, but with surprisingly little interior utilization for the amount of space that they take up. With Rebirth 5.7, you'll now find tiny apartments, the occasional shop, and little storage nooks and alcoves just scattered about along the side hallways, just, taking advantage of all that previously unused space. There's even just a tiny little tavern built into just a bit of this carved out space, and lots of new NPCs living in what is clearly some of the only affordable housing in the city, with a little more than room for a bed, or in some cases, a bedroll. Rebirth also adds in some more detailing to some of the original interior spaces, and all in all, this is just a rather realistic and immersive expansion to the foreign quarter wasteworks. But moving on, there's also been a few updates to Balmora in 5.7. Not much in the way of, the exterior, but as you can see here in 5.6, the pedestrian bridges over the Odai River had no guardrails, so NPCs would, on occasion, just fall into the river a bit. And now, with 5.7, these bridges have been replaced with new ones, that properly contain guardrails. A perhaps minor but notable addition that both looks good and will prevent those poor and unfortunate souls from just being swept away by the river's current. The rest of the changes in 5.7 with regards to Balmora are just all interior based. A lot of these interiors have already seen moderate or tiny changes in past updates, as you can see in the before screenshots and footage here. And some of the change details are fairly minor, nothing too drastic, as you'll see here in a moment. We're going to show you just all the before screenshots here, and in total, there's about 6 interiors in Balmora that have been updated in 5.7. The changes made here range in scale from simply adding in a closet or other small bits of clutter, to more obvious and bigger changes such as, adding in potted plants, new miscellaneous items, and more detailed areas that were previously just devoid of items or clutter. Some of these are actually just fairly big changes, like this one here, where the interior has a new set of columns just in the middle of the room to provide additional shelving and clutter, while again, others have just slightly more minor additions, like again the aforementioned closet or set of drawers. And it does seem like more interiors in this update have some sort of clothing-based storage, which was kind of missing in a lot of interiors in the vanilla game. But which, of course, does seem like a fairly realistic and immersive addition and detail to include here. But anyway, next we're heading to South of Mora, and more specifically Wolverine Hall, where Rebirth 5.7 has updated the interior for the Imperial Cult, and you can see what it used to look like back in 5.6 here. It was still more cluttered than the vanilla game, but perhaps not terribly exciting, containing only 2 rooms, with a dining room/lab and a bedroom. Now, here you can see what it looks like in 5.7. The lab/dining room is mostly the same, with only a smaller table and a fireplace added in the corner, as the only real major changes here. But going into the bedroom, used by the priests here, this has been expanded a bit with more privacy for the priests, with wall screens dividing off the shrine, a closet, and a small dining nook, which is all just, kinda cozy looking. Moving on to Ald'ruhn, Morrowind Rebirth 5.7 updates the interior for the Redoran Council Hall in Underscar, though I should mention this is still a beta, as in interior detailing isn't actually, finished yet. But either way, you can see how this used to look in 5.6, and, for the most part, it was fairly similar to Vanilla Morrowind, albeit with some, minor improvements. The Redoran Council Hall is probably the largest interior in Ald'ruhn, and one of the biggest issues it has is that it has, just lots of space without necessarily all that much, in it to utilize all that space, which is a fairly common issue in, the vanilla game. But anyway, here you can see the Redoran Council Hall in 5.7. Just again, keeping in mind that this still isn't technically finished and will likely be updated further in future versions of Morrowind Rebirth. But right away, you can see that a lot of that empty space has just been filled out, with more wall screens, lights, gardens, tables and chairs for the, the council meeting hall, including some banners to give the chamber just a bit more of a dramatic look and feel. The side chambers have also been given just a lot more detail and functionality over their, their vanilla counterparts, with Velothi shrines and ancestral pits, where the warriors of Great House Redoran can worship and, consecrate the remains of their fallen. There's just a vastly improved sense of atmospheric lighting just throughout the Redoran Council Hall, with cozy little lounging areas just here and there. And overall, this is just a vast improvement both on the vanilla game and on past versions of Morrowind Rebirth. Though again, this will likely be updated more in the future. Finally, one last city update in this latest release is for Caldera. And this one is a bit tricky to showcase because Rebirth 5.7 makes a series of just very minor cluttering and detailing changes to Caldera that are relatively spread out. We're going to show you the footage of 5.6 first, cut and edited to highlight the areas where there's actually been, some changes, so just, try and keep an eye out for where, these changes appear, because they are just a little hard to spot otherwise. And here's Caldera in 5.7, again with edited footage to try and highlight the main areas where, things have changed. This is mostly just, fairly minor stuff that doesn't really change or impact the layout of the city in any meaningful way, but might be, things like a few more containers, like crates and barrels along the side of an alleyway, or a wagon, or a set of sacks, or just a rock or two and some crushweed, just to fill out an otherwise empty corner. There's not a huge amount to see here that's been changed, so hopefully this will give you at least, some idea of what's actually different in Rebirth 5.7. One last little thing, just before we move on, I nearly forgot to mention this, but Rebirth 5.7 also makes just a few cosmetic changes to the Ahemmusa Ashlander camp in the Grazelands. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but anyway, you can see what it looks like before in 5.6 here, and here you can see it with the changes in 5.7. Namely, some additional clutter in the form of some just rather unique looking patchwork urns that have a kind of a interesting design, just scattered about the camp here. There's one or two just other minor changes here, but that's pretty much the main one. But anyway, now that we've just covered all the major city changes and improvements, let's take a look at what is arguably the highlight of this update, the new changes to dungeons and specifically Dwemer Ruins. We'll start with the exterior, visual changes made to Dwemer Ruins, beginning with Arkngthand, which, if you've watched our previous update video, had already, seen a fairly major visual change in 5.6, and you can see, some of that footage here. The 5.6 update added lighting to the Dwemer Bridge and just a number of more conventional fortress-like structures to this famed Dwemer Ruin, part of a series of exterior updates in 5.6. But, as you can see here with the update in 5.7, this has just been toned back a bit, so the changes to the exterior of Arkngthand aren't quite so dramatic as they were in 5.6. The bridge leading to Arkngthand has been slightly changed to reflect some exterior damage, and the ruins themselves have, they still have some of that new Dwemeri stronghold architecture, same as in 5.6, but to a lesser degree, with improved textures that better fit the, just the vanilla Dwemer Ruin style. The other Dwemer Ruin to see an exterior update in 5.7 is the tiny ruin of Aleft, the only Dwemer Ruin in the Bitter Coast region. Real quick, you can see what this ruin looked like in 5.6, basically just, unchanged from the vanilla game. And here, you can see Aleft in 5.7. And really not much has actually changed, except for just the addition of some, just some more of those more fortress-like Dwemer Ruin bits, as we've already seen with, other Dwemer Ruins back in 5.6. But otherwise, the rest of Aleft is pretty much the same. Now, the rest of the updates that Morrowind Rebirth 5.7 makes to Dual Ruins are pretty much just entirely interior based. And to a degree, all 23 Dual Ruins in Vanilla Morrowind, and the 2 new Dual Ruins added by Morrowind Rebirth, for a combined 25 ruins, have all been updated in 5.7. This ranges from minor cosmetic updates, like adding new Dwemer items, such as lanterns, plates, ingots, and various tools and utensils, to adding new rooms, cluttering corridors and chambers, and just, other little bits and details. Now, realistically, there's no real way for us to show off the, changes made to 25 different ruins in a timely manner. Not if we want to keep this video, to less than an hour long. So instead, we'll be showing off the changes for 7 Dual Ruins, and like with everything else, we're showing the footage from 5.6 first, followed by the footage from 5.7 for each ruin. I must stress, though, that the updates here can be rather minor, so it might not be immediately obvious what's different, but I've tried to highlight them just, as best as I can. In any event, this will take it will take a little while, so, I'm going to leave off with the commentary here. Now that we've taken a look at, just some of the dungeon overhauls in 5.7, let's move on to new items, and Morrowind Rebirth adds about a dozen new miscellaneous items and 2 new weapons in this 5.7 update, as, you can see here. This includes some new miscellaneous glass balls and cups, a lot of Dwemer-related clutter that, obviously were included in a lot of the Ruin overhauls that we just saw, and a couple of new Dwemer weapons, including a throwing vial and a broadsword. On a sort of a similar note, Rebirth adds 3 new creatures in 5.7, which are again just all, related to Dwemer ruins, with the Dwarven Wraith, Dwarven Phantom, and Dwarven Ghast. Normally, these would be found inside Dwemer ruins, but, in order to highlight them in just a better lighting condition, we're taking a look at them just, out here in the exterior. And for the most part, they're basically just, retextured Dwarven Spectres, which were, of course, in the vanilla game. But with different colouring to add just a bit more variety to the type of creatures that you can find in Dwemer ruins. But that's it for new items and creatures, so moving on, let's take a look at just the updated graphics in 5.7, starting with the Dagoth creature known as Mentana. In the vanilla game, and in 5.6, this uniquely named creature had just a simple copy of the Dagoth body, with nothing really besides the name to distinguish it. Now, in 5.7, it has a unique colour and texture, so you can more readily identify it from the the standard fare Dagoths in the vanilla game. In a similar vein, the Chapel Limeware Ball, seen here in 5.6, has also been given a unique look, making it just a proper unique object instead of a simple copy of the vanilla Limeware Ball. As you can see here, it now has a unique shape and size, as well as a unique icon. So you can just, tell it apart from other Limeware Balls, that are used elsewhere in the game. The rest of the notable graphics updates in 5.7 involve armor and weapons, including new models for the Imperial Chain armor set, and you can see how this armor set looked in 5.6 here, and here's the 5.7 version. I have to confess that I'm having a little bit of difficulty telling much of a difference myself, but this is a model update and not a texture update. So the changes in the models might just be, some slight quality of life changes and improvements here or there. But anyway, also in terms of armor, the helm for the Duke Guard's armor set has been updated and replaced. You can see how it used to look in 5.6 here, and how it looks now in 5.7 here. Personally, I do think this is a pretty major improvement. The 5.6 helm did look just a bit odd, and the 5.7 version, with that more, Centurion look about it, fits in better with the Imperial Legion aesthetic, I think. Finally, the Ebony Crossbow has been given a new texture, and again, the difference here might be a little hard to notice, but I believe the resolution has been maybe improved somewhat between 5.6 and 5.7. There's hundreds of other just minor graphical changes made in 5.7, mostly UV and model fixes, but this should give you just some idea of what to expect in the 5.7 update. Finally, let's take a look at some gameplay changes and improvements, and for our purposes, there's really only one major gameplay change to note here, namely the new transportation link between Dagonfell and Ald'ruhn, as you can now just take a boat between these two fishing towns. There's a few other just minor gameplay changes, but nothing that's really easy to show off in a video form, so that's pretty much it for this category. In any event, that's also pretty much it for today's update overview video, and again, down links for Morrowind Rebirth, along with the 5.7 changelog, can be found just down in the video description below. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe, stay healthy, happy modding, and I'll see you all next time.